Hi Eddie, nice to see you. Have you figured out what went wrong on Sunday? I know you've not had a lot of time since then, but what's your thoughts looking back on what was a difficult afternoon?
Yeah, it feels like we've had a lot of time since because we've done a considerable amount of analysis. So I think whenever you deliver a performance like that, it's never one-dimensional. There's been multi-factors that we've reflected on. But I think the most important thing from our experiences in Europe have been the quick turnaround in games. The focus very quickly has to go on to the next game, and that's not sort of trying to brush things under the carpet. We faced, how we played, and we've analysed it, but now we have to move on and look forward.
More analysis than usual, was it?
No, not necessarily. We do thorough analysis anyway, but I think from my side, I think it's never a nice thing to do after that kind of performance. But I think I'm very confident now that we've sort of digested it. And once you have all the information you need, as I say, you have to look forward and make sure the performance is better.
How are you looking injury-wise? No Bruno this morning. Has he got a chance tomorrow? And of course, you were missing Kieran Trippier at the weekend as well. What's his situation?
Yeah, so there seems like there's been a bit of illness going through the squad because that's various players now have picked something up. So I think Sandro, initially Jacob Murphy, Bruno, Kieran. So we're making a decision on Bruno tomorrow. He's such an important player for us, but he's clearly not been himself, and that's why he missed training today.
Thanks, Keith. We've got Damien and then Lee on the same row, please.
Hi, Eddie. During your time here, the team has traditionally, after a bad performance, responded to it. Do they owe themselves and you a better performance tomorrow night?
Well, I don't think they owe me because I think I'm very much included in that bad performance. So I look at it that way, that we're all together and we all have to deliver better. So very focused on trying to do that with the players. I think there's always a feeling of frustration, different emotions when you play that way, that you then try and use to your advantage for the future. And as you say, historically we have usually responded pretty well. We've tried to use performances like that as a catalyst for better, to try to learn from the experience. It's not the first time it's happened, it won't be the last. It's when you're in this game, especially with the amount of games we have to play, there will be dips in performance, but it's controlling that. And as I've said many times, even when you don't play well, you can still win, and we didn't deliver that aspect at all well.
I mean, a win tomorrow night would leave you in a really strong position. How much of an incentive is that, given the difficulty of the fixtures to come?
Yeah, it's a really important game for us because, as you say, we know what we have ahead in the Champions League, but that's not to say that this game is going to be easy either. I think we are back at home. We love playing here, as we say many times. But Athletic Club will provide stiff opposition, very good a defensive team. In terms of their defensive numbers are very, very strong. Off the ball, I think they've delivered this year some really strong performances in particular. So I think from that side, our attacking game is going to have to be at its very best. And of course, Champions League nights here are always special.
Thanks. Got Lee down the front, please.
Eddie, it's still very early in the season. You've still got 4 roads to a potential success story this season. Do you keep reminding yourself of that after a game like Sunday?
I don't necessarily think reminding ourselves of that. I think we're well aware of sort of the season, and we're right in the midst of a run of games that is hugely enjoyable but hugely challenging. I think we're disappointed with our Premier League form and the inability to string consistent results together, and I think that's where the competitions that we're in makes it difficult, because you can find consistency in one, and it seems like you're being consistent. Our recent run of games hasn't been too bad, and results-wise has actually been pretty strong, but in the Premier League in particular, we just haven't got those back-to-back wins that we need to elevate ourselves.
And you asked the players for honesty after the game. Were you convinced that you got that, the response of the players?
Yeah, I think the lads are very good in that respect. I think they do critique themselves honestly. I think they do reflect in that way. Even in some of the aspects of the performance were very honest, even though we didn't play very well. There was some bits, although we didn't play well, I'm not trying to kid people otherwise, there was still some strains of us in there. but obviously there was a lot of aspects of our game that weren't clicking, and the challenge is to put those right.
And just finally on Ramsdale, what does he have to do to get into the team for a game of this magnitude tomorrow night?
I think Aaron's. We're really pleased with his progression since he's been here. I think we've seen a big good performances in training from him. Obviously, he played very well in the game. I mean, but obviously I understand the question. But Nick has performed consistently as well, and our defensive record's been pretty strong this year. There's been a couple of blips in there, but through the whole of the season, I think that's been probably our strongest point. So, look, always decisions to make on the team, and it's important we have that strength.
Thank you. We'll go Craig, Ian and then Daniel on this side, please.
Hi Eddie, it was after the Brentford game last season when I think you came as close as you've ever done to reading a riot act, and there was the response on the back of it, the 10 victories. Did Sunday in a strange way feel like you fell into that hole that nadir from which you can climb out, and were riot acts read?
Yeah, I don't think riot acts is the right word. As I think I said at the time after the Brentford game, I think whenever you produce a type of performance that we did against West Ham, you want to use it as a turning point. But riot acts, I don't think help. It just lets you let off steam. I think you've got to be articulate, and you've got to communicate your points well to the players so they understand actually what you didn't like and what they've got to do better. I know it sounds obvious, but sometimes you have to get the simplistic viewpoint to the players and get the basics and fundamentals of your game, or you won't perform in any match. So I think it's a return to basics for us, the fundamentals of how we play, and then hoping that we can then perform at a really high level. And I'd say throughout the season, I don't think our general performances have been the problem. It's putting it all together and being consistent.
And I know you would have been asked this on Sunday, but there was two high-profile players taken off at half-time, an England winger and a Germany striker, Anthony and Nick Fontemorne. On reflection now, 48 hours later, what was the thinking behind that? How have they reacted, and where do you think they're at generally in terms of their respective seasons?
I think that with Nick, we're well aware that we've thrust him into every single game near enough. I thought he looked a little bit fatigued, and it's a case of making a decision that I felt tried to benefit the team and Nick going forward, because he's carrying a lot of load on his shoulders, which I think if at any stage I feel he is fatigued, then I need to act and help him. So that was the thinking behind that one. With Anthony, look, he's played very well in the Champions League. He hasn't quite hit that form in the Premier League, and I think that's his challenge.
Eddie, a little bit like West Ham, Athletic Club aren't in particular good form. Does Sunday's performance and result act as a timely reminder? It's not the state of the opposition that counts, it's what you do. Yeah,
the focus always has to be on ourselves, and we try to get the balance right between knowing the opposition that we're going to face and their strengths and their weaknesses, but really making sure we don't deviate too far from what we want to do either against any opponent. I'd like to think more often than not we try and strike that balance right. But I felt the most disappointing thing from the West Ham performance was it felt self-inflicted. Some of the aspects of our performance we sort of brought upon ourselves. And that's taking nothing away from West Ham, who won the game deservedly. But when you're focusing on our performance, you know that we can do a lot better.
The lack of consistency this season, is part of it the fact that this is very much a new look team compared to previous years? There's been a lot of new signings. Is it a team still betting in?
Yeah, I think I've got to be slightly careful how I answer that, because answers can be used against you. But in some senses, yes, I think there needs to be an understanding that with new players comes new expectations, and they have to become accustomed to what we do and how we play. And the expectations placed upon them, I think whenever you play for Newcastle, you can't have an off day mentally, you can't have an off day physically. In the Premier League, you can't do those things either, because the game will punish you. So I think hopefully we're learning and developing as a new team all the time. In saying that, there's a lot of experience on the pitch, a lot of know-how, and I'd have expected us to handle it a bit better.
Eddie, bridging on one of your previous answers, how important is your man management at this stage and knowing what to say to certain players depending on how they process a defeat in a performance like you had at West Ham?
Yeah, I think man management's very, very important, regardless of whether you're winning or losing, because both can be equally difficult. So yeah, I think I try to be very active with the players all the time, very communicative in all types of scenarios. Obviously, going into a game, I'd like to think I'll talk to the majority of the players about what's expected of them going into the next game. So yeah, a lot of work done the last few days.
And just how much of a frustration is it to you that when you're going from weekend game to midweek game to weekend game, that you're losing that training time, given how much you enjoy being out on the training pitch?
Sort of got used to that, I think, throughout this season and the season before last, in the respect that the training literally does fall away, and you're training in sort of very small bursts. I think the difficulty really in that scenario is for the players that aren't playing regularly, because they're missing out on the training and the games. So they have a tough season, I think, mentally. I think for the players that are playing, it's slightly easier because you're just going from game to game if they're playing regularly. The challenge for us is to prepare the games well. As I say, the training becomes of less importance.
Thank you. We'll go the gentleman at the back there in the black hoodie, and then we'll go Mark, George and Dom on this side, please.
Mr. Good afternoon, José Manuel Monge, Onda Vasca, Bilbao. No sé si conoce la convocatoria del Athletic, pero no viajan los hermanos Williams, tampoco Sancet y tampoco Yuri. ¿Qué valoración hace de esta convocatoria del Athletic?
Yeah, obviously very aware of the squad, and of course the manager. I've met the manager previously, and I think he's an outstanding tactician. But yeah, the Williams brothers are outstanding players, so well aware they've got a few injury problems, but we still expect a very, very strong squad, very strong opponent, very good manager, and a very good way of playing. I've watched them a lot, and I really admire their structure and how they play. So it's a Champions League, it's a game against top-class opposition. We know it's going to be very difficult.
Thank you. Mark, next, please.
You touched on Anthony Gordon there, like maybe not quite reaching the Premier League, playing really well in the Champions League, but maybe not quite hitting those heights in the Premier League. Have you had a chat with him about it? Are you kind of any closer to why that might be? Because he's an honest player, and he probably will admit himself that he didn't quite reach those heights.
Yeah, I've had many discussions with Anthony, and will continue to. As you say, he's a very honest player. There's no lack of effort or commitment or desire to do well. I think he's very, very driven to succeed. I've said that's one of his biggest qualities. Sometimes things fall that way. I mean, a game of football is a game of football regardless of the competition. He's an outstanding player. But of course we need more from everybody in the Premier League. It's not just Anthony, it's everyone connected with all the styles of our play, whether it's attacking, defending. But the league is of such a high level regardless of who you play. And of course there's added challenges for us mentally when we're returning from European games or cup games back to the Premier League, and we need to make that transition better.
That was one of the things that you kind of targeted this season to get through the Champions League. Has it been what you'd expected, the sort of Sunday, Wednesday or Saturday, Tuesday? Has it been easier this time to manage, or is it still difficult?
I don't think easier is there in with the schedule that we have. It's what we want first and foremost. The games are an amazing experiences, but there's challenges. I think there's challenges with all types of schedules. I think it's the mental challenge rather than the physical challenge, in my opinion. I thought West Ham was a mental challenge for us, and we failed it. So I think there's always learnings to take and improvements to make, tweaks to adjust, whatever we're doing, whether it's our schedule or how we're approaching things. And we try to do that to improve things.
George?
Hi, Eddie. You're playing a team that has a very specific Basque identity. Is there such a thing as a Geordie identity in footballing terms? And if so, what do you think it looks like?
That's a good question, George, that one. Yeah, I think there is. I think I'm lucky enough that my kids are playing football here, so I'm seeing the grassroots side of the game from various ages, from under 7s right up to under 15. So I'm sort of getting a unique look at football at that level, which is a great thing to experience, really, from my perspective, because you're seeing the enthusiasm and the love for the game here is unparalleled. And I think that'd be similar. I've visited both at Athletic Club and Real Sociedad and had a really good few days there many years ago, and it was really good to experience football in that part of the world. And I think the love of the game, I think, is the link there, and the enthusiasm and the love and passion for football that the Geordies have is, as I said, I think it's unparalleled.
You just have time for one more, please, Dom. Is that all right?
Hi, Eddie. After a performance like Sunday, is there a temptation to make a statement with your next team selection?
Yeah, I don't really know what that means. I think I'll always consider the team selection in great detail, in great length. You know, I never set out to make a statement. I'll set out to try and pick a team to win the next game. That's the only statement that we need to make. And so that's what I'll try and do on this occasion. Difficult team to pick, I think, off the back of Sunday, because you could make wholesale changes or you could give the main group of players a chance to redeem themselves for what they delivered, or what we delivered. So, yeah, I'm still not 100% there with my team, although it's 99% done.
And sorry, just one more. After the illness, do you think that contributed to Sunday's performance?
To the individuals?
The fact that there's been so many under the weather, is it a concern that contributed to Sunday?
No, I don't think we can use that as an excuse. I don't think the players would either. Maybe for one or two of the individuals in terms of how they played, but for the main group, no.